the things that's nice about Unity Fellowship is the fact that no matter whether you're white, black, brown, purple, green, gay, straight, bi, trans, you're welcome here. You know, it's just the mindset of everybody here, Pastor Bob all the way down. You know, everybody here. It's home, and you feel like you're going home. You feel like you're in a big accepting family when you're here.
So what makes Unity Fellowship different from other churches in Owensboro is their focus on making sure that everyone feels welcomed and accepted with no conditions. They're accepting of the LGBTQ plus community, of different people from different backgrounds and cultures, and this is what really led me to joining Unity Fellowship. And I also feel like many churches focus on the individual, but we are actually meant to be in relationship with others. The concept of Ubuntu, that if one person is oppressed, that all people are oppressed. And I feel like Pastor Bob, in his sermons, he really focuses on systemic injustices and oppression, and that God is on the side of the oppressed.
Well, after many years of being out of the church, we came to a point where we were ready to find a church, but I in particular knew that I no longer wanted a part of what I had experienced as a younger person. My soul and spirit had just no longer aligned with what I was being taught about myself. So I left the church for many years, and then as a couple years later, we decided we wanted to return to a church. So I knew part of that had to be a church that was totally accepting and that not just welcome to come to the door, but could fully participate in all regard, should we desire. And so we began to visit churches, and we visited Unity Fellowship a while back, and felt like we had made a discovery in a church home.
And we also like this church because it's a teaching church. Every Sunday we have the opportunity after the service, or even sometimes during it, if we have questions and we're not sure of what he's talking about, or if we have questions as to the sermon that he's preaching, that we're allowed to do that. And it's something that I've never had in a church, and it's been very enlightening, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned about a lot of things, actually. And above and beyond anything else, I know that I'm loved. I know that Scott's loved, and I know that we're loved together.
Can you hear us?
And so it's not
I
just
can.
like going to mass at a big church and you just go in, hear the thing, get up and leave. Here you actually are charged with asking yourself, what does it mean? And the membership is small enough we can all interact during the sermon as well as after the sermon. So we can ask each other questions. You learn from other people with their comments or their questions about whatever we're discussing that week or what was discussed the week before or whatever. And unlike a large church where you just know the people from sight, you actually know the people here. Whether they are active in doing something or they're just here every week and they participate in how are you doing and stuff like that, or they tell you how somebody else that they've talked to that you haven't seen is doing. So it's like a very large, it's not just a church family, it's a large family.
Just because you came from a Baptist background or a Pentecostal background or a Catholic background doesn't mean you're not welcome. Unity will surprises a lot of people because everyone is accepted. You will feel comfortable. You won't feel out of place. You won't feel judged. You'll feel like you belong.
folks. This is Pastor Bob coming to you from Unity Fellowship. You may be really sick of church. You may have given up on church a long time ago, and maybe you're not even looking for a place. But I want to invite you to a faith community where you'll be safe, where you can be accepted for who you are. Always, for whoever you are right now on your faith journey. Check us out on Facebook Live. Check us out on Zoom. I think you'll find a place that you're safe, a place that you'll be accepted, a place that you'll feel comfortable.
Check 1, 2, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, just checking.
Yeah. Are we streaming on Facebook? I can't seem to find
What
it.
makes Unity Fellowship
should be streaming on
different from
Facebook,
other
yes.
churches in Owensboro
Okay.
is their focus on making sure that everyone feels welcomed and accepted with no conditions. They're accepting of the LGBTQ plus community, of different people from different backgrounds and cultures, and this is what really led me to joining Unity Fellowship. This community, at its heart, is open to everyone, and even if you are on the fence and you might disagree, we are still open to having that dialogue and that discussion that fosters growth and understanding. So I feel like the people who come to Unity Fellowship are so open and loving that even if you didn't agree with something that the church promotes, that you're still able to express that and not be judged.
Hey, Gator.
There's not here yet.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Wonder if there's a problem. Good morning. I hear the bells are ringing. We're waiting on our special guests to arrive. I hope that everyone is doing well this morning. Want to say welcome to you wherever in the world you may be. We're glad that you have found us this morning and that you are worshiping with us. We do have special guests and we're awaiting their arrival. This is Pride Sunday at Unity Fellowship. We say every week that you are, every molecule of your being is welcome and affirmed here. You are so welcome in this space. This is a safe space for you. So I hope that you will feel comfortable. Give me just a moment here. I'm sorry that I can't be with you this morning. I am remaining at home, still caring for my wife after a stroke that she had about 6 weeks ago or so. And she's getting stronger every day, but not quite to the point where I can leave her and be there with you in person for any length of time. Anyway, like I said, we're still waiting on our special guests to arrive. Let's see, where is that? And I guess we'll just go right on into any. I have a shortened version for today to allow more time for our guests to speak. But let's just go on into the news, joys, and concerns that you might have. We want to pray with you with anything that is going on in your life that you would like to share with us. We want to rejoice with you. If you have something that you'd like to say you're joyful for, and if you have some news going on in your life or something to report to us that's newsworthy, please do so and share that with us. If you're on Facebook, you'll have to put something in the chat. I cannot see what's on chat right now, so somebody there in the sanctuary will have to help me out with that. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Zoom, you can unmute. We will hear you, and if you have video and see you as well. If you are in person on site, please wave a hand. We will get a microphone to you, and you can speak and tell us what's going on in your life. News, joys, and concerns. Anyone?
Good morning. I'm having a little bit of a setback. This is Becky. I'm having a little setback with my back, but I think I've decided now, well, it's time. I'll be 75 in a couple of weeks, and it's time for me to just do the best that I can. So I'll be using the walker the rest of my life, I'm sure. But please pray for me that it doesn't get much worse.
Absolutely, and sorry to hear you're having a setback, Becky. Praying for you that everything goes well. Anyone else?
Hey, this is Chrissy.
Hey, Chrissy.
Hey, news. Me and my husband both just celebrated our 8-month clean and sober, so we're doing really good with that. And I know I owe a lot of that to all the prayers we've got here at Unity. I appreciate all of you. And I guess a joy would be that today is going to be my first Pride, and I'm really excited about that and really happy to be sharing that with all of you.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? News, joys, or concerns? Anybody on Facebook? Like I said, I can't see it today, but someone there could report if you're on Facebook this morning.
Nothing on Facebook.
Okay, thank you. Well, join me in prayer if you would, please. Gracious God and Creator, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this day of celebration, of pride, and we lift up all of our LGBTQ plus folks, and we ask a blessing upon them. We ask that you would be with us today, protect us during this celebration from anyone that might want to disrupt. We pray that everyone will feel welcomed and affirmed and lifted up in anything and everything that we do. Want to pray for our guests who will be leading our discussion today. We pray your blessings upon them. We thank you for the story that they have to share with us. And finally, we pray for all these concerns that have been lifted up this morning. Whatever's going on in our life, both spoken as well as unspoken, concerns that are burdening us or and we rejoice with the joys that have been shared. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. If you would please join our contact list, I invite you to do so. You can do that by texting the word ADD, ADD, to the number 270-201-5022. It will send you a form, and if you would at least give us your name, you'll be added to the list whether you give us any information or not. But every Sunday morning about 9 o'clock, you'll receive a text with the topic for the day as well as links so that you can join us. But we would love to have you on our list. If you would just text the word "add" to that number, and we'll have you on our list. Thank you. If you would like to support this ministry, there are several ways that you can do that. You can go to our Facebook page or our web page and click on the donate button that you find there, and it'll walk you through how to make a gift. It can be a one-time gift. I would encourage that you become a regular supporter, either monthly or weekly, or however is the best way for you to be a regular, ongoing giver. That way we can count on your gifts to our ministry. But we value every gift. We never pressure anyone to give. If you have the ability to give and support our ministry, we would greatly appreciate it. You can also send it to P.O. Box 1401 in Owensboro. That's 42302. Or if you happen to be on site, you can just drop it in one of the two offering plates. There's one at each door when you leave the sanctuary this morning. And the only thing I have left before our guests arrive is our video for the day. This is U2. Love is bigger than anything in its way. I love the message of the song. I love the way that the video was put together by some of our LGBTQ siblings. Love is bigger. Love wins, bigger than anything that gets in its way. Okay, our guests have arrived just in time. Let me introduce our special guests for the day. Some of you already know them. You may not know a lot about them, but we have two guests who were plaintiffs in the Supreme Court decision that provided marriage equality across the land. First is Dominique Harlon James, was born in Seymour, Indiana, moved to Louisville when he was a young adult. He graduated from the University of Louisville and also earned his master's from the University of Phoenix. Dominique has been a strong advocate for civil rights and worked closely with Gator to further equality across the South. In his spare time, Dominique likes traveling, listening to music, and reading. And then our associate pastor, Reverend Gator Lone Wolf, was born in Greenwood, South Carolina. He moved to Kentucky with his family as a teenager, graduated from the University of Louisville, and also attended Louisville Presbyterian Seminary, where he earned his Master's of Divinity. Gator, too, has long been an activist for LGBTQ rights and has worked closely with organizations across the South in an effort to further equality, justice, and to fight discrimination. He's an enrolled Cherokee in the Eastern Tribe of South Carolina. He enjoys fishing, hunting, and playing guitar in his spare time. Welcome, Gator and Dominique. We are so glad that you are here with us today. I'm going to try to conduct this as an interview of sorts. I'm going to ask you some questions. We're going to open it up for others. Please feel free to elaborate and tell us anything else that you'd like to tell us. But let me begin with, what are your hopes and dreams?
Bob, do you want us to stand up, or I don't?
As long as everybody can see you, you can either
Okay.
stand or sit. I don't really have a preference
Yeah,
on
let's
that.
do that.
What works for you is fine.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll pull two up front. You stay there at your side. About right here. All right. Sorry, Bob. Can you repeat the question?
What are your hopes and dreams?
Okay. What are our hopes and dreams?
Kind of get to know you first, and then we'll talk about some of the other stuff as we get there. So just tell us what your hopes and dreams are.
Yes, as Bob mentioned, well, first off, thank you for having us today. I'm Dominique James. Gosh, my hopes and dreams. Well, going back to, I guess, 2002, 2003, after I graduated high school from a small town called North Vernon in Indiana, my hopes and dreams were to get out of there as fast as I could to a place that was accepting of who I am.
Yeah.
And that was either Indianapolis, Indiana, or Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
I have some friends and family there in Indianapolis, but Louisville was much more attractive to me. And then, again, I was just wanting to be accepted for who I was. I was wanting to find that lifelong partner, husband. I was wanting to have a family. My hopes and dreams are already true. That they've already come to fruition. Yeah.
Thank you, Dominique. My story is kind of similar to Dominique's in that kind of my hopes and dreams were to find family, create a family, have a child. And like Dominique said, that has all come true a millionfold. So I think if you take in a larger context of what my hopes and dreams are, it would be to, that thing's really hot, isn't it? It would be to continue to work where people treat other people the same, not special, but the same no matter what difference it is, across the spectrum in society and faith communities. That's my hopes and dreams, and that we can have leadership that is in some way moral in the way they love and seek justice and equality for the nation. That's, and obviously want my child to grow up in that type of world and less of what I grew up in.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to the early years a little bit. What life experiences, you've already talked about it just a little, I suppose. Now, what life experiences has shaped your life? Family, high school, etc.?
A big part of what shaped my life in the very beginning started in high school and with my family. Again, just kind of going back to that acceptance. I don't think there was anyone in my family, especially the immediate family, that would have been accepting, that was accepting when I came out. And then even in high school, there was a situation with one of the teachers that dramatically impacted my life. That I felt like kind of changed the course of my life. At the time, I was thinking I was going to go on to maybe like Ball State University or something, graduate directly from that high school. But after that situation occurred, and I know this is probably a little TMI, but it was a sexual harassment from the teacher. But somehow it ended up coming back on me, and I got expelled from high school and had to go through the adult education center there in North Vernon to finish my diploma. But as soon as I did that, I had to get out.
Yeah.
Because this teacher was so highly respected in the community. It didn't matter where I went, who I talked to. Everyone was, it felt like judging me. And for the biggest part, that was true. Because they all thought that I was lying about what had taken place. So as soon as I graduated, I had to get out of there. I did not have a choice. And like I said, it was between Indianapolis and Louisville, and I'm glad I chose Louisville because that's where I met my husband over the past almost 20 years. Almost. Just had our 19-year anniversary. So,
Anniversary.
I mean, that, and then I currently work for Charter Communications, also known as Spectrum. Been there for, it'll be 19 years in September. And just being there has allowed me so many different advantages over the years, and kind of helped me grow into the person I am today, and helped me establish my family. So those are two of the big things that have really kind of shaped me into the person, helped shape me into the person I am today.
Thank you. By the way, thank you for your candor, and we are honored that you trust us to tell your story. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dominique. I grew up in a rural community, very fundamentalist, grew up in the church, and the good things about it, it was a sense of family in the church, and safety, and kind of if you fell in line with it, you didn't have any trouble. But if you fell out of line, it was always that threat of hell or outright abuse. And so I grew up in that and pretty much just towed the line and moved, like Bob said, when I was a teenager to Kentucky. That was a huge culture shock for me. My sister was younger at the time. And so I really began to question, you know, who am I? Because when you grow up with certain people and all of a sudden they're not around you anymore, they are part of who you are. You're part of that friend group. You're part of that. And so that was a big struggle for me.
Okay.
And hiding who I was becoming, a part of who I was becoming, was a full-time job, it felt like. And then dealing with the emotions that come with that. So it was a big struggle, and trying to figure out if God still loved me, and if the church was the place for me, and all of that kind of shaped, or at least gave me footsteps forward into where I am today.
Okay, thank you. What about your role models, your influences? What are the life influences, role models, people that you admire? It could be close people, or authors, or people that you've been influenced by.
Okay, my parents would be number one. So really looked up to them and tried to model the behavior that they taught. Dr. King, Mahatma Gandhi, those are some ones I really studied all of their works and pondered about how to put those nonviolent techniques into action for our realm of equality. I think those are my main ones. So my mother, my father, Dr. King, of course Bayard Rustin. If you're not familiar with Bayard, I can tell you about that another time. And then Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Dominique?
As I briefly mentioned earlier, my family wasn't so supportive. So after myself and Maurice married, his mother and father really took on a big role as far as paternal, maternal parent figures go. So I, over the years, have really grown to not just love them, but respect them, and learn a lot from them just through my interactions with them, even though I wasn't technically their son. So I look up to them a lot. And my husband. Growing up, I didn't come from a really religious background. I would have considered myself Christian, for sure. But we didn't go regularly on Sundays to church. As I got older, I kind of took it upon myself to do that. But after we married, he introduced me even more so to that. And we started attending on a regular basis. And so that's been a big influence as well.
Sure. I think your story is probably mirror a lot of other folks who didn't find the support from family and friends, and they had to go find surrogates. You were fortunate to find surrogates in your in-laws, and so that I understand that. That's great. Let's talk about your relationship a little bit. How did you meet? Dating life, marriage. How did all that come about?
Well, we have two different stories, just a heads up for how we met. I'll let him start us off.
like many couples.
Right. We met first at a club in Louisville. Dominique was a little tipsy that night, so he doesn't remember that meeting. The next night, it was like friends put together a picnic over at their apartment complex, and I went in there. He was there again, and I knew who was his ex-boyfriend at the time, and I knew they were broken up. So before that picnic ended, I leaned over to him. I said, would you ever want to go out with me sometime? And he said, maybe. And that was good enough for me. And we really connected, even though we do come from very different backgrounds in a lot of ways. We just connected on a soul level. And I was lucky because it was like I was able to marry my best friend.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can say that. Hopefully they can at some point. But yeah, that's how we met. So it's not as risky as you think, meeting somebody at the club. But for LGBTQ people, your life is on the line if you approach somebody that you're not sure. So the gay club or lesbian club or whatever, that's the safest space to feel like you can approach someone without being hurt or maybe even killed. So that's where we met. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
So what's the alternate story?
Well, my bad. Sorry, it's kind of loud. As he mentioned, I say that we met the following day at the picnic.
Okay.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, it's not
You got
scandalous.
that part right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And at some point you decided to get married. Tell us just a little bit around that.
We did. Just right around 2 years later.
Yeah.
Is when that happened. And I think it was about, about 1 year into the relationship is when he proposed to me. We were on vacation, and his mother and her husband were with us, and we were in New Orleans. There were a couple pretty big things that took place there, but I will never forget the evening because it was terrible timing on my part. I had the worst stomach cramps ever that evening.
You didn't let any of us know.
I didn't let it stop us from having fun. So he had rented a horse and carriage.
Well, yeah, we didn't rent them, but we paid for a ride. You had old mule-drawn carriages, And I told the man, the mule driver, I said, I want you to stop in the middle up where Jackson Square. Anybody been to New Orleans? Jackson Square is the big cathedral and everything. I said, stop right there and wait. And so he stops, right? And I reach back, and of course I present the ring, and he didn't let on at all. He was in tremendous pain. But he agreed. He said, yeah, we can get married. And then 2 days later, Katrina hit. So everything was boarded up that night. And we kind of thought to each other, we ought not tell that story around fundamentalists because they'll say we were the cause of it. So we keep that story for more open-minded individuals.
But you don't think that's what caused Katrina, huh?
No, I hope not, at least. But yeah, that's how it happened, and we knew it was going to be illegal, but that really didn't matter to us. We wanted to make a commitment before God and our family and friends to each other. And so that was 06. And my father, who's an ordained minister, he officiated it. And that's the date we stay by, even though the legal one came in 2015. The one in 06 is the one we count.
Awesome. Let me talk about spiritual development, your spiritual life, church experiences that you had, and zero in just a little bit on you, David, because you experienced a calling of some sort and ended up in seminary. But just talk about your spiritual development.
Okay. So that first part that I mentioned, growing up as a child, it was, if I could use an analogy, it was like sitting at the table at your grandmother's house. Whatever she cooked, you gonna eat it. That's it.
Yeah.
You didn't ask her, did that touch the onions? You know, you didn't say it. You just ate it. And as I grew, I began, for whatever reason, to question, not negate, but to question the recipes, if you will, of spirituality, especially when I knew that I was gay and what that would mean and what happened from the church at that time. I began to think, is this really even for me at all? Was this all some big charade about belonging to something or getting you a ticket to heaven? And I really wrestled with that, especially obviously after I came out. I was done with the church because I didn't feel safe there. And I thought, y'all have no right to tell me what I can and can't be. That's between me and God. So during this time, I didn't open the Bible. I'm like my dad. If I was on the radio, listening to the radio, and I crossed this channel with a preacher, I'd move right home. I didn't want to hear it. And my friend from South Carolina, he messaged me one day and told me, have you read this book? And I thought, oh, because I didn't want to read. And he said, well, look at this book. He said, The Gospel of Inclusion by Bishop Carlton Pearson. Well, I made myself read it. That book completely upended the fundamentalist theology I had been raised in a good way. Yeah. And I began to imagine what the future spiritually would hold for me. And it was during that time that I felt a calling from God to enter into ministry, and more specifically to enter into ministry to restore and heal the LGBT community from the scars they had received in the church. Not that I was the healer, but that I could be a conduit, and they could see, oh, I'm safe here. You know, that type of thing. So that's what led me to seminary. My father had been to seminary. I had no idea the amount of work that it was. It was worth it. It took me 5.5 years because I had to work full time and go in the evenings, but Dominique helped support me and got that, and then was ordained by Highland Baptist Church. Joe Phelps was the pastor in 2012. And had subsequently started a ministry called True Colors at Harlon for the LGBTQ plus community. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it came about. But today, my spirituality is probably not the same as everyone else's in a sense, but it makes sense for me. And
sure.
The relationship I have with God, Creator. So, yeah, it's a mix of Christianity and Cherokee spirituality. But yeah, Bob, that's kind of how, in a real short way, all of that came about. It was by being exiled and then feeling a calling back and thinking, God, why do you want me to go back?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
I can imagine, Dominique, that if you're like my wife, being a spouse of someone who feels a calling to ministry, you feel kind of dragged along with
sometimes.
Right, I understand. But how did you relate to the calling that Gator had and your role in all of that?
Well, to be honest, when he first told me he was thinking about going to seminary, I said, what in the world? Why? You know, and just like, because he had mentioned, and we're all well aware of, historically speaking, the church, religion, for that matter, majority of times, looks down upon same-sex couples or members of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah.
So while I said earlier as well that I had attended church on my own several times, that was mostly through the elementary years. But then as I got older and I started getting more in tune with who I was, who my true self was, I didn't see acceptance for myself any longer in the church. So I stopped going myself.
Sure.
And then we got together, and through him, through his seminary, through his involvement with the church, I've slowly got reintegrated within the church, and it really opened up my eyes as well. Especially just the big differences between the Old Testament and the New Testament. But just seeing it from a different view as he was going throughout seminary really helped me grow as far as that goes.
Okay. Thank you. Let me fast forward just a little bit. What sparked your interest in activism? And at some point you decided to seek a marriage license in Kentucky when you knew that it was illegal. What led you to take such a bold initiative? And what did you do when you were denied a license?
So my activism didn't just start at 2013 when what you're referring to happened. I had always been, and when I say always, probably since 10 or 11, been very sensitive to, interested in the African American struggle for civil rights.
Okay.
And had always admired the leaders of that movement, or the ordinary people who became leaders of that movement. And all of that kind of paved the foundation for, okay, I'll be honest with you, I was looking around at the LGBT community here in the United States, and we didn't have a strong leader or leaders. We had individuals doing things in different areas. And I thought, okay, that may work. So we were just doing road work, meaning going and speaking to different schools, speaking to different universities, churches, seminaries about inclusion. And then what really happened to spark our activism, particularly around marriage equality, is when one of the members of True Colors Ministry was hit and killed on Bardstown Road. He was deaf, and his partner, they'd been together 10 years, lived together and all that. And his partner went home that afternoon, and of course the apartment's dark. He called Buddy's phone number over and over again, no answer. Night comes, nothing. He's worried. And finally he calls Buster's phone again, and a lady answers it, and he said, I'm trying to reach my partner Buster. And she said, well, I'm a nurse at University Hospital. Who are you? And he said, I'm his partner. And she said, well, he's been in a car accident. And so immediately he left the apartment and went down to the hospital, and for 4 hours, he was denied any information about Buster's Goodwill because they didn't consider him family.
Right.
And finally Buster's grown son arrived, who was deaf as well. The doctor came out, and because the doctor couldn't do sign language, he went through Kevin so the young man asked, how's my father? And the doctor looks at Kevin to sign back and says, your father passed away an hour ago.
Wow.
And so Kevin, you can't explain that type of feeling of humiliation, I think, mixed with pure rage, that he was denied being with Buster in the final time of his life. Anyway, he called me early that morning, 3 a.m., was sobbing and told me about it. And we kind of talked at length about how sick we were of taking that type of treatment. And we were done doing that. That we needed to make a stand about it, not a violent one, but a public one. And that's what led Dominique and I to pray and think about how would we do this in a way that doesn't burn bridges. And so all that, we did as you mentioned, Bob, we went and it was on Martin Luther King Day 2013, and we had a protest for marriage equality in downtown Louisville, and then we went in to apply for a marriage license knowing we would be denied, but we did it because we wanted the news cameras to record what they would say to us, so people listening at home maybe could put themselves in our shoes and hear what we put up with. So we did that. Of course, the lady's like, you're not getting a marriage license. Why? Because you're a same-sex couple. And we said, well, we're obligated, spiritually obligated to stay and pray. And we stayed until closing hours. They sent the police. Long story short, we were arrested, charged with trespassing, and put in jail overnight. And so that's how it all came together. But all the things we did were blue book, what Mahatma Gandhi did in India and some of the methods Dr. King used in his cohorts throughout the American South. Nonviolent protests, we never cussed anybody, we never resisted, but we sat firm in our personhood. And Dominique, he talks about being dragged along. He was very nervous about this. Very nervous. You want to talk about that? He was like, are you sure? Go ahead.
I always say you ruined my perfect record.
Yeah. Perfect record. Now you got a perfect record. But yeah, he was scared about it, and we kind of went over what would happen. And, and Bob, the interesting thing about it is two gay men being put into jail, you would think there'd be a great deal of hostility and anger from other inmates. It was the corrections officers that were the nastiest, the most homophobic, and the meanest. And I thought, no wonder these individuals in here are angry and hostile. They're being treated like nothing. So it was an interesting learning experience, and that led to the trial. And I can turn it back over to you, Bob.
Yeah, well, that action by the two of you and your arrest led directly to being invited to join the SCOTUS case with the Supreme Court. You were invited to be a part as one of the plaintiffs in that case. Is that right?
That's right.
But tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we went to trial for the trespassing, and the whole time the Commonwealth attorney was trying to threaten us. Like he was going to put us in jail for 90 days. He was going to do all this, and our attorney just said, he's bluffing. I thought to myself, he better be bluffing because I got a job, right? So went to trial for that, and Dominique went up on the stand and explained why we did it. And here I am, a trained minister, preached many, many times. He was so eloquent and raw. He didn't filter anything. And I think he really touched that jury in ways that I couldn't have done. And they went back, so the trial was an hour. They went back and deliberated for 3. And so our attorney thought this was just going to be like that. So I'm thinking, what are they doing back there? And finally they come back. They had a question, so they send the bailiff back. So finally they come out. They said, the judge says, y'all reached a decision? Yes. So we had to stand up. We kind of laugh about it because the worst we could have gotten would be $250 each. to pay. But I felt like we were fixing to get the chair because we've been waiting for 3 hours, you know. So we stood up and they came in. How do you find the plaintiffs? Find them guilty, which, turn it down, which is not surprising. We knew we were on camera, okay. And how much do you charge them? 1 penny. 1 penny. And you could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom. And my attorney leaned over and told me that's the lowest they could have charged you for this crime. And it was, I had never experienced that connection between people who are nothing like me and us, but they got it. And so the judge was like, well, we'll waive the 2 pennies for time served. And so we were very grateful. At the same time, the Governor Bashir, the old Governor Bashir, appealed the case. It went to the appeals court in Cincinnati. We lost there. It was a very conservative court. And we thought that was the end of it. Very disappointed. And then all of a sudden, wait a minute. The Supreme Court wants to hear the case. And so us, along with, I think it was about 7 other plaintiffs, couples, went in 2015 to the Supreme Court of the United States. And to think of this little boy in Greenwood, South Carolina, who was so scared to fall out of line that he wouldn't be loved or accepted anymore. And here I was walking hand in hand with my husband up the steps to the Supreme Court of the United States.
You were actually there when that decision was handed down, is that right?
No, we were there when they argued the case. We were in Jackson Hole, Wyoming when they handed the decision down.
Okay.
And so we weren't present there, but it didn't matter. We were there when it counted, and we will never forget that experience. You want to add anything?
I think he has a great way with words himself. But yeah, I mean that was an experience I'll never forget. Going there and walking up those steps and being present as they're talking, debating the case there.
Yeah. I wanted to stand up in the middle of it and say, you can't handle the truth. But the attorney said, let's just wait. We'll do that later.
I will say, as we were exiting, and we walked out to the stair level, it was the highest point you could be outside, and down at the lowest part, there was just a sea of people. And the whole time there was this one group that was, you're an abomination, you're going to hell type stuff, and just yelling it. But the support from the other people just drowned out.
It did.
That other group. It was a very moving moment.
I was scared when we went out front somebody's going to shoot us. It was that tense. And we're just targets. And like he said, all you hear is the F word and queer and just screamed at you. And by the time we got to the bottom of those stairs, I couldn't hear any of them. Their mouths were still moving, but all I heard was love wins, love wins, love. And the whole crowd was chanting it. And it was like, wow, what a moment. Yeah. It's good to revisit it in your memory every night.
Yeah, thank you. I want to turn now to talk about the future of LGBTQ rights. Are there any specific cases or situations that you all are keeping your eye on? What do you see for the future?
Well, I think given the politics at this time and the way certain rights have been taken from individuals and subsets of society, we need to be concerned. A year ago in December, President Biden and Vice President Harris invited us along with the other plaintiffs to join them at the White House as they signed the Freedom of Marriage Act, which federally protects our rights to marriage. So that was great, but the fear is that certain states will. So all that means is for the federal, it would mean that if we were married in Kentucky and we went to South Carolina or Florida, they'd have to recognize that. Yeah. That's what that was. But it doesn't control the states, and they could easily pass anti-marriage equality laws. And you say, that's terrible. Well, it is terrible. But to add to that, what about adoptions? What about children in those situations? All of a sudden, a parent's no longer a legal parent. And families are messed up. And, loss and division and all that stuff. And I feel like right now, a lot of people need to be concerned about their rights, not just LGBTQ people.
Right.
But us in particular, we have got to vote. And we've got to, yes, go to Pride and enjoy that. But I'll be honest, it angers me that all these people show up to Pride and they don't go vote. Where do they think these rights come from?
Yeah.
They come from legislation that's put into place by people in power. And that's what I'm really nervous about. Are people going to show up and vote to protect these laws in the future? And I'll be honest, I've kind of put it out of my mind, because if I sit every day and worry, is my marriage going to still be legal, sure, I wouldn't be able to live like I should. But I'm just trusting that people will show up and do what's right and get interested in more than just the rainbow flags and the makeup and all that. I'm not putting that down, but that's a piece of who we are. But our humanity has to be defended. And I think we've leaned too much on allies in the past to do our fighting for us. And we've got to fight alongside them. But I'm very, very nervous right now, especially if Trump is elected. I'm very, very nervous. Not only about legislation, Bob, but about our physical safety.
Sure. I want to give an opportunity for anyone else who would like to ask a question or make a comment. This is your turn. If you are on Facebook, put something in the chat, and I am on Facebook now. I can see you. If you put a question there. If you're on Zoom, you can unmute and speak, and if you're on site, please wave a hand so we can get a microphone to you so that everyone can hear you. Your questions or comments.
I got you.
Well, when I first met Gator, I had never met him before. And somebody said, well, he and his partner look like the Backstreet Boys when they were young. So funny. So I'm expecting them to break out in song, see. I wanted to know if it was very hard when you went to adopt Josiah. How did that go? Was that pretty smooth?
I wouldn't say it was smooth, no. We went through a couple of different agencies. And the first one, at first, they said it was okay. But then we got a couple months into the process, and eventually they came around and said, well, no, we can't do this. I think it was more than a couple months. We'd been in the process for a while.
We put money in, and they said, well, we answer to the Catholic diocese, and they've learned of this, and they said no. So we was like, okay. And we weren't okay, but we left, and we found another agency in Louisville that was completely affirming, and went that way. But I will say it's hard when you're a same-sex couple adopting, because you have to create these portfolios that mothers and potential people look through. And I'm not there to explain that we're human too, because the first thing they see is two men.
Yeah.
They don't hear our story, nothing. And I thought, we're going to miss out on a child because people are going to get stuck on us being same sex. So I appreciate that question. And Josiah's mom chose us, and We got Josiah when he's 15 minutes old. Yeah. And he is the best. So very, very
Awesome.
lucky.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Anyone else?
Can I just say that being who I am and what I am, I can't empathize because just cannot imagine what you go through still.
Yeah, right.
And how far it's come, and I honor you immensely.
Appreciate that.
I pray
Amen.
for
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted
I've
to.
got a comment. Hang on just one second. There's a comment from someone online, Tracy Cox. Thank you for sharing your story. The scars of the church and politics go so deep for me. It's difficult to see a united future for all of us.
I just had a comment about when it was announced that the Supreme Court had made same-sex marriage legal. That's one of those moments where I will never forget where I was and how I felt. So I cannot imagine how big that was for you, because I was walking on air. I could not believe it. I was so happy. So I can only imagine that that was just a tiny little bit of what you guys felt.
Yeah.
Yes. It's hard. Like I said, we were in Wyoming, so we were literally about to get on a boat and go down the Snake River. And the phone, ding, you look down, marriage equality. But I think it worked out well because there was no cameras there. There was no people wanting to ask us questions. It was us as a couple. A quiet, dignifying moment. We don't need anybody's validation.
Yeah.
We did what we were supposed to do. We were activists, nonviolent, and this happened. And we were just elated. And we were ready to go get the license, you know, ready. It's 1,400 rights and benefits, Bob. 1,400
Absolutely.
rights and benefits. And, and before I jump off the mic here, who texted me first? Kevin.
Oh,
Did you
that's
hear
great.
about
Beautiful.
marriage equality? I said, yes, I did.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
I just wish Buster had been around for them to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah. Anyone else? We can go a little bit longer today than usual, so we're already past our normal time. But just a little, if you have other questions or comments, we'll stick with it.
This is just a comment from my personal life. Our salesman, years ago when I worked for K&W, were in New Orleans for a seminar on equipment. So they called in and I asked them how they were going. He said, oh, we had a good experience. He said, we got a new experience too. So they were having a gay convention at the motel.
I bet that was a new experience.
Our son happened to be in San Francisco for business during Pride Week once, just a few years ago, and he was like, wow, that was fun.
Yes. Yes. We know how to have a good time.
Anyone else? Okay, I don't see any other comments or questions on Facebook. Anyone else on Zoom?
Bob, I just wanted to add how important it is for us to be in this faith community here and for Josiah to grow up seeing both of his fathers affirmed and treated like they should be around all other people. I look over that often, but I know he doesn't. And it's not a bad thing, Josiah. Because like this, Josiah has shared with us at times, he gets nervous going into new places.
Sure.
And so we talk to him more. What does that mean? What are you nervous? Well, I'm nervous that they see I have 2 white dads. And that's what I'm nervous about.
Sure.
And so it's not his fault, not our fault, but it's the reality. And so when we are able to come into spaces like this and not feel nervous or waiting for the next shoe to fall, it's very special. So during this Pride Month, I take pride in the fact that to find people like y'all love and welcome us. And Josiah will grow up in a world not knowing some of the things we experienced, at least on the LGBT side.
And I'll second that. Appreciate y'all being so welcoming and affirming with us and not treating us better, but equal. Right?
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Dominique and Pastor G, again, for your candor, for sharing your story, a very personal story, for being who you are. We love you. We thank you. You all are going to be staying for the Pride picnic this afternoon. I want to invite everyone else to join us for the picnic as well. I am extremely happy and elated, really, that our church gets to host the Pride picnic for Owensboro and Davis County. If you can stay, please do. There'll be a visibility walk at noon, and then the picnic starts at 1 o'clock. We've got about 30 vendors out there this year, and then the drag show this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Again, thank you so much. God bless you, and have a great Pride Day, everyone. Love you so much. God bless.